Hello everyone, welcome to this video and welcome to this channel. My name is Courtney and I'm an EPIK teacher in the jeollabuk-do area. So that means that I am an elementary school teacher in South Korea. I teach English, I teach 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and I have 2 travel schools, so 3 schools total. And today I'm going to be talking about winter and summer English camps. So I wanted to make this video because I think when you join EPIK, camps are just a really elusive thing. It can be really intimidating, especially if you're coming from a background that is not education, because you show up and there's even a class at orientation meant for camps and you just kind of nod your way through it and think to yourself, I have no idea what this actually means. So I just wanted to make this video to provide a little bit of clarity. I know it's a small niche topic, but this would have been so helpful going into my first camps. So if you are interested in these types of videos or interested in following along in my life in South Korea and giving tips and tricks and advice I wish I would have known going into EPIK, then make sure and like and subscribe. And I do want to say that I have only taught 2 camps, so a lot of times you'll teach a summer and a winter camp, but you don't have to necessarily. It's completely up to your school. So there's a lot of veterans here who have much more experience than me. I have only taught 2, but they're at 2 different schools with different grades, so I thought I could at least give you a little bit of information that you might not have. So I just have a list that I'm going to pop up on the screen and just go into 4 different sections. First, what actually is camp? Second, how do you pick a theme? Third, what does planning for camp look like? And then fourth, just tips, tricks, advice, and then my own stories of doing winter camp. So number 1, what actually is camp? So camp is a time that your school sets aside either in the winter or summer or both, and you're basically providing the kids at your school the opportunity to come to English camp during their vacation. So their parents will sign them up if they are interested in the theme or if they are just interested in their child continuing in their education experience with English over the break. Sometimes it can be 2-day camps, 3, 4, 5. I've even seen up to 10-day camps. I have done a 5-day camp and a 4-day camp. So I have found at my schools, on average, it was around 18 to 20 students who showed up to camp. So it just depends on what your school looks like. If you have a small amount of students, you're probably going to have a very small camp. Again, the school camp is catered towards your school and whoever is interested in showing up. Second thing, camps are usually half days. So I do want to emphasize, again, every single school is different. My 4-day camp, I did from 9 until 1. My 5-day camp, I did 9 until 12. So you are basically filling 4 to 5 periods worth of content in your camp. And lastly, you pick the theme. It's up to you as a native English teacher to come up with this whole entire structure. I definitely got to Korea and they were like, hey, okay, winter camp, it's on you. That can be really intimidating again if you don't come from an education background, especially because you're thinking to yourself, I have no idea what I am doing. So let's go into the second part of this video, which is picking a theme. So all camps are themed and tailored towards something. It can be really specific and niche, or it can be really broad. My number 1 tip for this is looking at CourseShare. I'm going to show a picture of what CourseShare looks like. It's essentially this website that everyone uses here, and I cannot recommend enough that as English teachers, we have a lot of lesson plans on there that you can actually look at textbooks, look at specific lessons, find a lot of really great ideas there. But they also have a ton of great camp ideas. All you have to do is sign up with your email. There's no payment or anything like that. So I highly recommend going on CourseShare, checking it out. There are so many camp themes, but I do want to highlight a couple that I think are great ideas. For one, I have to say the camp that I did, which was Disney themed. I am absolutely loving this camp. I think because even if you run out of material, it's really nice to have a Disney camp or some kind of movie themed camp because you can just pop that in there the last 20 minutes. It's a great reward for the kids, but you were already able to put so much English content up until that point. So they're able to experience it through the visual and audio and then just kind of implement the vocab that you previously talked about. So I love my Disney camp, which I'll talk about later and exactly how it was structured, what my workbook looks like, all of that. I used 4 different Disney movies, but you can definitely focus on just one, and there's plenty of those on CourseShare. Number 2, superhero theme. If you have a lot of boys at your school, especially, you could do superhero themes. Everyone knows Marvel here, so regardless of whatever type of demographic you have in your school, a lot of them will love Marvel, so there are superhero themes and great vocab to go along with those. Number 3, cooking. A cooking class is really great. It actually takes a lot of time to cook, but just make sure whatever material material you're teaching in English, you're still able to teach. The next one, Harry Potter theme. Harry Potter theme is a really, really big one. I will say, I think for elementary school, it was a bit too complicated for my schools. Obviously, it depends on how high or low level your students are when it comes to English. But I think if you do have middle or lower level English in your schools, then Harry Potter can get quite confusing because the vocab can be really big. Just talking about Quidditch or talking about housing and ceremonies and different things like that, they can be quite large words. But I think if you hit the right school at the right time in the right grade, Harry Potter can be an incredible theme. I know that's a very, very popular theme here. Next, science. Science and science experiments are amazing. If you're the type of person who loves making hypothesis and doing little volcanoes in a bottle or lava lamps, this can be a great time to explore that creativity. You have your hands on crafts, but you're able to teach so much alongside that. I think that's a great idea. And lastly, just around the world, this is a really popular theme. You can just talk about a different country each day or zoom in on one continent, say Europe, and then go through multiple countries that week talking about Europe. That way you can talk about food, but you can talk about music, everything alongside that. So they're really able to taste and experience it. I think that can be a really neat one, provide a lot of exposure, and that one's really cool. Okay, so we picked our theme number 3, how to plan. I know when it came to how to plan, I was like, ugh, I really hope core shares showed up, and thankfully it did, but I just want to give you a brief structure of what you probably want to be thinking about once you choose a theme to make sure it's realistic and can come into fruition. Number 1, think about your activities. Everybody's going to have a different time frame you're working in, so make sure you're not squeezing too much in, but also you don't want to leave your kids hanging and have an extra 30 minutes left, but you have no way to fill it. So really just think about your activities. You want to make sure it's interactive, which bleeds into number 2, the budget. I think the budget can be really intimidating, and especially making an Excel spreadsheet. There are some of these already made up, and I'm going to talk about budget in a little bit more detail in a second, but budget is really, really important. This is one of the main things your co-teachers are going to ask you for. They're going to want a mock-up of what your camp's going to look like so they can show it to the principal, but budget is really important so you can see what you're working with. Some schools are going to have much more funding than other schools. You might be able to go all out, but you don't know until you ask. Budget is really important. Number 3, you will be asked to create a workbook. This is what mine looked like, just the back. But in here, you're going to have content like the different crafts you're doing. This is a clay robot craft that they can just draw it before actually making the clay, and this is something like a crossword. You'll be asked to create a document, and it has all those activities in there. Essentially what this document is, this is just providing every piece of paper the kid will need. That way you're not walking in and handing out 5 sheets of paper every day. You're handing out one document all together that they can keep, so all their materials are in one place. So don't get overwhelmed with this having to be a huge PDF. Really just think, what are the resources that we're going to need? What individual materials do they need? Etc., and just put that inside the workbook. And number 4, this leads into what I was talking about before, but what is a realistic time frame? Something that I didn't realize because I hadn't worked with elementary schoolers prior to teaching this year is that something like a robot craft or making a candle Olaf or snowman will take the full class period. It can take 40 minutes, it can take an hour to do these things that are really, really simple to assemble. But because the kids are so creative, sometimes they're going to want to map it out, or they'll put it together but want to redesign it. It can take them a very long time to be satisfied and happy with the arts and crafts that they make. Just know if you're trying to cram in an activity in 20 minutes that you think, oh, you can assemble this in 5. No, they're going to want to color that. They're going to want to glitter that. They're going to want to show it to their friends. They're going to want to make sure that this is absolutely perfect. So give them the amount of time that they're really going to need, not just so that you can cram it in and be able to say that you did it in your camp. Because this is what they're going to go home and show their parents and say, this is what I did at English camp. So you want them to be happy and satisfied that they had the time to complete it. Okay, number 4, this is just tips, tricks, and advice. So number 1 of this part, budget. As I mentioned, this is a huge part, but I want to be able to help you figure out what you want to put in your budget. Obviously, please do whatever your camp needs and don't take this as an end-all be-all. This is just a place to start if you don't know where to. Number 1, your kids will want snacks. This is a given. A lot of times you're going to want to entice kids, not in a creepy way, by saying, hey, you should come to English camp. We're going to have free juice. We're gonna have free chocolate milk. We're gonna have cookies. We're gonna have all these things. You should show up to English camp. They think to themselves, wow, cookies. Then boom, you hit them with all the English knowledge right out the bat. But having snacks and providing enough, and I really mean this, if you have a 5-day camp, you gotta make sure your snacks are not just gonna last 1 day or 2 days. They gotta last all 5. Number 2, prizes. Please don't forget about prizes. You can make this as competitive or not as you want. At one school, I did my camp pretty competitive with almost everything because my co-teacher really suggested that. At my other one, I made some competitions so that the kids were engaged, but I didn't want to make everything a competition. So this really depends on what your style in the classroom is and how engaged your kids are, but I would definitely provide some incentives. So what are these prizes, you might ask? I think a really popular one is stationery, and by stationery, I mean pens, pencils, notebooks, calendars. Erasers are really popular, fun erasers. Those are great rewards. You can definitely also do candy, but just be wary that you probably don't want to give out candy for everything because they can get really hyped up on candy. So maybe candy as the first option, like, you won one thing. Here's a piece of candy. Oh, second tier up. Here's stationery. Third tier up, you could have something like a nice pencil case or just something that's a bit bigger of a prize. Again, completely dependent on your school budget. So you might want to have a tier ranking system, but those are some ideas. It really just depends on your kids, what they enjoy. Something I wanted to mention is name tags. I feel like this is highly overlooked, but to a 4th, 5th, or 6th grader, it can be really special for them if they get a name tag. They can wear it around their neck, or you could prop it up on the desk. I think it's a fun way to get them really involved. It's personalized. It might not seem like a big deal to you as a teacher, but I think the kids can get really invested in that, especially if it's on theme. Like in my school, it was Disney theme, as I mentioned, so I gave them Disney characters as English names, so I didn't force them to come up with an English name that they needed. I gave them Ariel or Sebastian, or I gave them Genie or Jasmine, or somebody from the theme of a movie, so that it was their English name for the week and it was on theme. And lastly, when it comes to budgeting, I would just ask yourself, what is going to benefit my school in the future? If we don't have a lot of dry erase boards or dry erase markers, and I try and incorporate that into your budget if at all possible so that you can continue to reuse those resources, especially if you're at a school that doesn't have a lot of funding or has older materials. It can be nice to just be able to reuse what you are budgeted to have for camp so that you have it throughout the rest of the year and it's really nice for you and the kids. When it comes to tips, tricks, and advice, go with the flow. Things will happen, people will show up, people won't, class schedules will change, kids will get in arguments, certain groups won't work, certain groups will work. All these things can happen, so you just gotta be flexible, go with the flow, and probably just plan to incorporate maybe another 10 or 15 minutes into your schedule where you can elongate an activity and have enough to fill your time. But also, if you need to do massive cleanup, or if you need to transition and take longer actually in your activity, you're able to do that. You have wiggle room. Just be flexible. You are working with kids, and if you have that mindset, I think it'll do a world of difference in helping you feel calm in your camps. This might sound like a lot, especially if camp for you is in a couple months, or you're just even thinking about EPIK and what it entails. If you are teaching camp, then that means that you have probably been doing EPIK for at least 4 or 5 months. So you're gonna know the kids, you're gonna know your co-teachers much better, you'll understand the environment, access to resources, all of that. So don't stress. When it actually comes time to do camp, you're gonna have a lot more information going into actually what you're wanting to do and a lot more experience at that point. Really briefly on this part of the video, I'm just going to touch on a few things specific to my camp. A really big disclaimer I want to put out there is that I did take this camp from Coursera. So this is not something created by me. I will definitely link the person who made it alongside the Coursera link down below. I just took this and adapted it to my needs for both of my schools, which I did have to take out certain activities and put new ones in, but this was not my original creation. This was a fantastic idea and I just adapted it to my schools and my classroom. Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys this workbook. Most of the time your book is going to have your school's name and then also the date for winter 2024 English camp. Please excuse my chipped fingernail polish, but this says Disney camp. You just put your name here. So I set up so that you could have name tags And then we have just the index so the kids know exactly where to go. This is a schedule. These are rules. I had to adapt these on my PowerPoint. This is a good time to note that there is a PowerPoint slide for every single one of these pages. So your workbook goes alongside PowerPoint slides, but these are the rules. Day one was Moana, so you can see that there is a little picture that you can connect the numbers to. This is really nice. You want to make sure it's printed color and all of that. So this is just day one, the entry into it. So this is a space for new words. So it says day one, and they can write the English and they can also write the Korean. And then right here, they connect the Korean with the English word and then circle the word search. Next, this is a type of bingo game. I actually don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's omok. I could be completely wrong. But this is just a matching game. You have the words and then you also have the pictures over here. And so they ask and answer each other so that they are able to cross off. It's 5 in a row for this game. And we have several rounds of that. Here is the foil art craft. So there's just a page here showing the craft itself and also what type of materials you'll get. And then they actually get the packet for the foil art craft themselves and then they construct it and put it together. But there's just a page explaining that and showing the layout. And then at the end, there is a wrap up. So here there's the crossword and they're trying to complete it without actually having the vocab out. So it has the Korean and you translate it to the English. This is also really great if you are running out of time, but you have a few kids who are like, teacher, I'm done. Boom, you can finish the wrap up. And then it just moves on to the next day, and that is Big Hero 6 here. And it just repeats itself, and this is a 5-day camp. Something that I did is I also made printouts, and this is basically just taking the schedule. It was already set up in the slides and in the book, but as a teacher is really helpful to see, so I don't have to constantly be flipping through the actual book, the workbook, or I don't have to be flipping through the slides to be able to tell what's coming next. So this is just a little cheat sheet that I made, and I think is a really great thing to do just so you have a concise piece of information. So this is for the Big Hero 6 day, but this is just an example of little printouts that you can have outside of the actual book, but you can still use. So this is in black and white. I will say both of my schools are a bit weary when it comes to printing in color. So I would just say if it's not in the workbook itself, then maybe it will have to be in black and white. Totally depends on your school though. But these are just additional resources for print-offs. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful. If you have done several EPIK camps before, make sure and leave a comment down below of advice. You can agree or disagree with this, but it'd be nice to be able to help other people out and just your experience that went with this. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have the absolute best day of your life, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.